Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board public hearing for Wednesday, February 12th, 2020. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to take action on all consent agenda items. So any item indicated on the agenda with an asterisk is currently on the consent agenda unless you fill out a blue card like this. We have quite a few, so if there's anybody that still needs to fill out one of these, please do so right now. Looks like we have another one coming up here. For right now, we have quite a few. Oh, there's some more. Okay. Let's see.
Those are speak or not speak.
Sorry, that's his.
So this is that speak.
Thank you. Give us just 1 minute, please. We're going to categorize these.
Okay, so these are the do nots. Yep, these are good. Is that a wish? Yep.
I think we're all good.
And then that one.
Okay, the only question we have is on one of our blue cards from Tom Gibson. You didn't indicate which item it is that you don't wish to speak, but you're in favor of. Mr. Gibson, is he here? Are you talking about item 4A or? Yeah. 4A. Okay, we're just going to write that down here on your card. Thank you. Okay. All right, so we are pulling off items 4A and the related plat, which is 5A from the consent agenda, and we'll discuss that shortly. Board Member Allen's agreed to read the consent agenda for us.
Ready?
Go ahead, please do.
These are the following items on the consent agenda for February 12th, 2020. Approval of the minutes from previous meetings, PZ 20023, minutes from the January 22nd, 2020 study session and regular hearing. Item 3A, ZON 19-00844, District 2, within the 100 block of South 63rd Street, East Side, and within the 100 block of South 64th Street, West Side, located south of Main Street and east of Wrecker Road. The site plan review. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Those are the only two items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, everyone please vote. Okay, so the consent agenda passes with Board Member Boyle absent. So now we'll move on to the regular hearing items. Item 4A, it's case PZ 20025, ZON 19-00651 in District 5. This is within the 1300 block of North 46th Street, located north of Brown Road and east of Greenfield Road on approximately 4.85 acres. This is a request to rezone from RS 43 to RSL 2.5 PAD. This request will allow for the development of a single residence subdivision. There's also a companion case. It's the preliminary plat known as Parkside Villas. And Cassidy Welsh is our staff planner.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. This subject site is located north of Brown Road and east of Greenfield Road on the west side of 46th Street. The request is to rezone the site from RS 43 to RSL 2.5 with a PAD overlay, as well as a preliminary plat request. This will allow for the development of a single residence subdivision. The site plan can be viewed here. The request is for a gated community with private streets. The primary ingress and egress will be located on the north side of the site off of 46th Street, as well as an additional exit-only access located on the south side of the site, also on 46th Street. City of Mesa Princess Park is located to the west, and there is a amenity space located at the southwest corner of the site. The general plan character area designation for this site is neighborhood suburban. The purpose is to provide for safe places for people to live where they can feel secure and enjoy their surrounding community. The subject request also conforms to Chapter 4, creating and maintaining a variety of great neighborhoods, which specifically outlines safe, clean, and healthy living environments, providing for diversity, and providing for that missing middle housing. So the subject site is surrounded by a existing RS9 development to the north and east. The site is also immediately surrounded by RS43. There are some large lot single residences to the immediate north and south of the proposed site, and then Princess Park to the west. Here you can see some photos of the existing site. In the first photo, you can see the existing residence on site, which the applicant is proposing to demolish as a part of this request. As a part of the request, the applicant is requesting a planned area development overlay for deviations. The two deviations that the applicant is requesting is a reduction in the rear setback for patios, as well as to allow the lots to front onto private streets as opposed to public streets. As a part of the request for an RSL small lot single residence development, certain design elements have to be met. The applicant has selected 6 design elements: street and sidewalk improvements, parkland and usable open space, paving material, variable front yards, entries and porches, and architectural diversity. And the proposed development meets the intent for those design elements. So the applicant did conduct a citizen participation process, which included letters to property owners within 1,000 feet, as well as HOAs and registered neighborhoods within a mile. The applicant did hold 3 neighborhood meetings. The first neighborhood meeting was held prior to the formal application. 12 residents attended, and the second and third neighborhood meetings were held after the formal submittal, and 41 and 30 residents attended both of those. Staff has been contacted in regards to this case. We did receive 3 letters of objection, as well as 2 phone calls stating their objection to the case. And 5 letters of support and 1 phone call of support. The applicant received an additional 5 letters of support, all of which were included to the Planning and Zoning Board. The concerns from the residents are outlined here. The primary concerns were with the increased traffic that the proposed development would cause on 46th Street and Princess Drive, the transition from septic to sewer, the capacity for these local schools, some drainage issues on 46th Street, the height of the proposed homes, the size of the proposed lots, and the compatibilities with the existing neighborhood, and property values. Here you can see the proposed product to be approved as a part of this request. The request includes 3 floor plans with a minimum of 3 elevations per floor plan. And with that, staff is recommending approval with conditions.
Thank you. Are there any questions right now for Cassidy? No? Okay, I'm sure we'll be back with you with questions.
Okay.
Cassidy. Okay, the applicant is Adam Baugh. I'm sure you have a presentation for us.
I do, and I think mine will be brief. Make sure I get this right here. Members of the commission, thank you for your time today, and I appreciate the deliberation on this. Adam Baugh with you, Morris, 25 East Arizona, Biltmore Circle. It's important to kind of frame this with some of the historical background that comes with this property. This area was developed in the 1970s. A lot of those homes that surround us were developed when they were part of Maricopa County. And the county at the time had different development standards than exist currently with Mesa today. So for example, as you know, all those homes are on individual septic systems. There was no master sewer plan. The complete streets weren't done. The lighting isn't complete along 46th Street. And so, you don't have residential design guidelines back in place in the 1970s. And so that's why you see homes of the character that they are. And so, understandably, over time, developments filled in some of this area, and that property annexed into Mesa. But when it annexed into Mesa, Mesa had to take it the way it was. And so when you have infill parcels, whether it's this one or other ones, there's always some degree of challenge. And there's a reason why they're these leftover remnant pieces. If they were easy to be developed, they would have been developed a long, long time ago. And sometimes they got challenges with topography or grading issues, or it's just weird parcel shapes or sizes. But when you have these leftover remnant pieces, they tend to become perhaps a nuisance. Maybe not all of them, maybe not this one in particular, but that's a challenge that Mesa had to deal with over time, and that's the struggle with infill development. But because they have some site challenges, they're appropriate in cases like this to offset those site burdens with density so it's a product that's feasible and doable. And that's the story behind this one today. As you already know the property as it exists here, and Cassie's done an excellent job walking through the staff report, but there's something I want to show you. When we started this proposal, this was the plan that we started with, about 39 or 40 homes. And as you can see here, we had a group of homes that backed up to the park. And staff said, you're missing an opportunity to engage the park. Make it a second amenity space, so to speak. If you push all your units to the back of the park, then you've turned your back to it and there's no eyes on the property. And that's sort of an opportunity to for mischievous youth, so to speak. And so by removing that off, that's the first tip we did. The second thing we need to do is make sure that we also provided a secondary access point. And so with those thoughts in mind, we came up with this plan right here. And as you can see, we've removed those lots off of the park. There's a few, but not many. And we provided 2 pedestrian connections. So residents here can enjoy the park amenity just like the folks around us. Before we started this case, though, I want to let you know, we did something a little unusual. We did a neighbor meeting before we filed it. It's because previously and fairly recently, someone had proposed duplex homes on this development. And once we heard that, and we decided we should probably do our outreach before we do anything else. And that's why we had the first meeting in July with a dozen or so people. And then we came with a plan that had 39 lots and we changed it down to 36 lots. And so this is a plan before you today. And through that retooling process, we've had to do things like increase our landscape setbacks along the street, provide street lighting, fence details, a lot of coordination. And so we've done now 3 neighborhood meetings. But the reason why we did 3 is because we heard some feedback in the second that we wanted to make sure we addressed, and particularly if this commission wants to hear that. Before I go on to how we addressed it, I wanted to give you an idea of what we're developing here. This is the product that we're building. And this particular developer and home builder has built this product already in the vicinity of this area on Brown Road at the 202 freeway. So this is a high quality architecture type of product. And it really is best exemplified because when you have infill, the costs are so burdensome that people start to dress down the residential architectural product. In this case, we try to dress it up, even being an infill site. Here's another example of the existing product that they're building today. So you can see the high quality architecture that's represented throughout. I'll skip through some of these ones and cut right to the neighborhood outreach efforts. Cassie's already summarized that, so I'll go to this next one here. Here are the 5 concerns, and I want to walk you through how we addressed each of those individually. The first one is traffic. There seemed to be a concern that because we were adding 36 new homes, it was going to create a perception it was going to create an overload of traffic. So we did what is called a modeling study. The traffic engineer modeled it, and it showed us in the peak time in the morning about 30 trips, and the peak time in the afternoon about 38 trips, which is a really, really low traffic estimation. Unfortunately, it seemed that wasn't acceptable for some of the residents, and so we actually went out and did put the strips down to do the counting. And it turned out that the traffic study actually worked even better than what we thought for the modeling. And it showed that on 46th Street, it's designed for 1,600 vehicles, and there's only 906 daily trips today. So it's operating at about 56% capacity. And Princess Drive, I guess it didn't come up on the slide here. Princess Drive also is severely under capacity as well. So there's no problem whatsoever with traffic being generated by 36 residential homes. The next concern seemed to be sewer. And somehow there was this rumor that got out there that once we brought in the sewer line, that all the other homes would have to connect to sewer as well. And we wanted to make sure we understood that. There is no sewer line on 46th Street. We have to drag that all the way from Brown Road up to the property. And in 1975, when this area was developed, that wasn't a requirement back then. And so this little small infill development has to bear the burden of an infrastructure cost that should have been borne in the 1970s, so to speak. So when we drag that line up from Brown Road all the way to the property, there seemed to be a fear that somehow all these other homes were gonna have to tie in and connect to that. What we've since learned is that through the city's civil engineer, Robert Apodaca, only the homes that front 46th Street would possibly tie into the sewer line, and that's exactly 4 homes, and that's it. And more importantly, they don't tie in unless they're replacing the existing septic or doing a significant expansion onto their home. And so what we've agreed to do in cooperation with the neighbors is that for all those 4 homes at our cost, we'll bring a tie-in stub to that residence if they want us to. And so that way, when that time comes, if they need to replace their septic, it actually will be more affordable for them than to replace the existing septic, just to tie into the existing sewer line. Again, this would only apply to 4 homes along the many that exist up in that area. Again, there seemed to be a concern that somehow we were going to reduce their property values. And so what we looked at was the armless comparative sales market data for this area. In 2019, there was 30 home sales in the 3 subdivisions that are surrounding this. And the average sale was $269,000, and the average square foot of those was 1,680. So our sales comps when we built this product just down the street were in the high 200s, low 300s, and that was about 3 years ago or so when those homes were sold. I can tell you that that's a very comparative model for what we're doing because it's the same product in virtually the same area. We expect our homes will sell somewhere at high 200s to the low 300s, and once you add in your amenities and upgrades, those features will only go up. And what we know, though, is you have to be careful not to overprice the market area. People won't pay substantially more than what the market already is in that area, but they will pay a premium to have a new product. And so what we've tried to do is build a product that's compatible with the sales comps in that area, and maybe someone will pay a little bit more of a premium for the new product with the new efficiencies and the new architecture and then sewer, for example. But we've been very careful to make sure that our sales comps are consistent and actually support and are greater than what would be in the present area. There seemed to be a concern that somehow we were going to overload the schools. I don't know where the genesis of that idea came from, but we actually reached out to the schools, and in particular, Barbara Bush Elementary is only 68% occupied. And then we went to the middle school, and they're only 46% occupied. So we will not overcrowd those schools, and staff has also received a letter from the school district as well. And then there seemed to be a concern that in this area, there has been flooding in the roads, and I understand that. I think that's really not attributed to our development, but that's a reflection of a property built in the 1970s when you didn't have grading and drainage standards like you do today. So when I looked at that neighborhood around us, there's no common area spaces, there's no retention basins. Those things simply didn't exist with the county in the 1970s. And so when we come in and develop, we actually have to provide on-site retention that the subdivisions around us didn't. We also have to take into account and accept the half-street right-of-way flows as well and retain them on our properties too, which didn't exist in the neighborhood that surround us. So while there may be a drainage issue in the streets already, that condition exists whether or not we develop, and I can tell you that once we develop, we'll improve that in a net benefit because we have to take that onto our property. And the city preliminary grading drainage plan has been reviewed by the city, and it's complied with all their ordinances and standards. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the Mesa General Plan, and this what matters. This area general plan designation supports the zoning district we're asking for. So that right there highlights a bit of its compatibility. But beyond the land use elements, you got to look at the goals and policies. You talk about having safe, clean, and living healthy environments, and that's exactly what we're doing with the gated community, with the view fencing to the park. You're incorporating CEPTED standards, which are crime prevention through environmental design. You have a professionally managed HOA. It improves the streetscape and the appearance of there. We also create a better community because we have things like curb, gutter, sidewalk, street lighting, perimeter fencing, and landscaping that don't exist along that street network today. And it helps fill in that missing pedestrian element. And then lastly, it has the trees and the focus along that road. So while maybe in the future, the other vacant land may develop, it will complete that sidewalk infrastructure. When I think about what happens here at Mesa, ask yourself, where can I find a brand new home under $300,000 in Mesa? It almost doesn't exist. And that's why I love this plan, because it really fills in that missing middle. There's a lot of multifamily and there's a lot of under 4, but there's nowhere in between. And what we've tried to do is build a product that fits that missing middle, which is exactly what your general plan recommends. Trying to find a brand new home under $300,000 that's your own private yards and not an attached product is something that doesn't exist anymore, rarely here and there. And so that's what we've been trying to do. And by creating a unique sense of place, high quality architecture, not doing the cluster housing that you saw KB do with the alley loaded. And that's, I think, proven itself not to be a good optimal design. We aren't doing that stuff, but that's typically what you see when you're building small lots product. At the end of the day, we have thoughtful yards, enhanced architecture, and high quality amenities in our product. At the end of the day, I think this meets the goals of the general plan. It meets the goals of the city. It helps fill in infill, and by so doing, solve some of the problems that exist. Now, I'll admit, I haven't been able to convince everybody, and I don't know if that's really my job is to convince everybody. I think my job, though, is to hear concerns and address concerns, and that's what we've tried to do as I walked you through my presentation. I understand there's probably people here in support as well who kind of have lived in this area for some time and desire to see some improvements and some enhancements to that area too, but at the end of the day, I think this has some significant benefits. It's consistent with general plan. It really is a good use for this area, and it solves what is the challenge with infill properties. Infill always has hair on the bone, so to speak, and a lot of times people just don't want to tackle those problems. So we've got a developer who's willing to address that, and through that effort, we've been able to get staff support and even some letters of support, even though there's some folks who are obviously opposed as well. So with that being said, I'll end my presentation. Of course, I know there's some folks here who like to speak, and if you'd allow me, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer your question in the backside, or maybe have a minute of rebuttal if you would permit.
Yeah, of course. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Barr now? Okay, then we'll definitely invite you back up afterward. Any questions of staff, though, before I open it up to the public?
I don't think so.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Oh, did I say something? Oh, okay, thank you. Perfect timing. We have to put them in the right order. I think we're all good. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. All right, so we have quite a few cards. I'm just going to read through the cards where people indicate they do not wish to speak, just to state what your comment is for the record. The first one, and if I apologize in advance if I say anything incorrectly. And this first one is tough. Gherkins, Dallin? Gherkins?
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, excellent. Okay, so you are in favor of this item but do not wish to speak. Mr. J. Ernesto Henriquez, you are in favor of this item. You do not wish to speak. Let's see. Mr. Lloyd Thompson, you are in favor of this item. You do not wish to speak. Okay. Kim Fleming, you are in favor of this item but do not wish to speak. Okay, Tom Gibson, we confirmed this is the correct item. You are in favor of the item, you do not wish to speak. Haley Frost, in favor of this item but you do not wish to speak. Raven, no, I apologize, this is an opposed. Oh, no, I'm okay, sorry about that, I'm okay, I'm on the right path here. Raven Wright, you are opposed to this item, but you do not wish to speak. And Tim and Cheryl Carlin, opposed to this item, do not wish to speak. And Bill Nichols, opposed to this item, do not wish to speak. So I'll give these cards to our staff to have placed into the record. Now we'll go through the people who wish to speak. The first one is George, is it Bulk?
Sorry, I do not wish to speak.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and if with your permission, I'll check that off. Okay, so you are just okay. Tracy Conklin? Yes. Okay, you do wish to speak. So kind of the rules before, as you're walking up, go ahead and come on up. If you could just state your name and address for the record,
Okay.
and we'll give everyone 3 minutes, and you'll see a timer there. We'll keep track of the time.
Is there any way to go back to his diagram of the new proposed?
Sure, I think he's going to go ahead and take
Just
care of
tell me
that
which
for
Just
you.
the plots, the layout, where it was, where you changed and took off those couple homes?
This one or the
Yes,
one?
thank you.
Okay.
And so when that 3 minutes is up, I'll have to interrupt you.
That's
I'm sorry.
okay, it won't take very long.
Okay.
My name is Tracy Conklin. I live at 4648 East Glen Cove Street, Mesa, Arizona, 85205. I am opposed to the planned site. mainly after some of these changes. First off, I wanted to address that they said that there was 3 meetings in the people within the community that were surrounding it of so many radius. I was never notified of the first one. I actually found out after the second one. The letter was postdated the day of the meeting. So then I did call the city planner, Casey, and talked with him and informed him of this, and was recommended to contact Adam. I reached out through email and telephone calls and never received any notifications back, not even, I got your call, give me a call back. Was very highly disappointed in that. I actually had to take off of work as a real estate agent today to come to voice my concerns. Some of it, yes, has been reached out, but there is some conflicting that I feel as a local resident. I live where, in between 46th and 48th Street, my street is fairly straight. It is used as a drag race for all the teenagers that are now living in our community. We have, unfortunately, an influx, well, fortunate, but unfortunate influx of new families moving into this community with very young children. And they're using our streets between 46th and 48th Street as a drag race. The influx of average of 76 additional cars and traffic is going to divert people to 48th Street to use the traffic light to get in and out. It does back up when I leave for work. It does back up when I drove my kids to school. There's also a bus stop within 5 feet of the entrance for several communities. So those cars are going to be going in and out at a bus stop that is not supervised in any way. I have watched on many of occasions cars blow by that bus stop and almost hit children. My concern is we should remove the houses on the back plot all the way across to give those additional homes views, largen the size of the lots to be a little more comparable with the 10,000 square foot lots that are in the surrounding community. I'm not opposed to it being 2-story. The elevations on some of the planned homes are higher than what is in the surrounding area, which is a little of concern for sight lines. We are already being taken away a lot of our beauty sight lines. Our orchards are already being taken away from developments, and it's changing the demographics of why I moved into that area. I purposely chose a non-HOA home. Number 1 rule to move from the house I lived in for 7 years was no HOA. Second, large enough lot for a pool. Unfortunately, because even the county said it was septic and septic, said it was sewer, and found out I was on septic, no pool.
Thank you.
I know my time is short, so I appreciate
Thank
it. Thank you in advance. I just wish that there's a little more meeting in the surrounding community. Thank you.
Thank you. Geri Nichols?
Thank you for your time. We are not an organized
Can you
neighborhood.
say your name and address?
Oh,
Sorry, we got to
sorry.
follow
Can you hear me?
the procedure. You can pull that down towards you.
I'm Geri Nichols. I have lived at 4608 East Greenway Street for over 30 years. It is a beautiful neighborhood with beautiful people. Most of us have quarter-acre lots or third-acre lots. The site that they're building on, the surrounding lots, most of them are a house on an acre. The density is atrocious. It does not match our neighborhood. I would hope the city of Mesa would be sensitive to the kind of community we have already. We don't mind if you change the zoning a little bit, but this putting houses on 3,000 square foot lots is very inappropriate for a neighborhood. Traffic is a problem on 46th Street. Many people have almost been killed. My children being one of them. I used to be out there trying to get the traffic to slow down. We have a speeding problem. We have a density problem if you put all these homes in. I also feel like a gated community backing up to a public park is also inappropriate for this community. In addition, this land has flooded for years, and now they're going to put concrete on it. Where's all the water going to go? I would just like you to take your time looking at this project and ask the developers to please cut down the number of homes. I realize it's a pretty development, but we have quarter-acre lots across the street where they're building is mostly 1-acre lots, and they're trying to cram, 9 houses per acre? It's just not appropriate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'd also like to know the letters that were written in support of this, how many of them actually came from the neighborhood and how many came from people outside the neighborhood. And I'm calling the neighborhood Brown Road from 46, from Greenfield Road to 48th Street, Brown Road over to McClellan. Thank you.
We'll bring that up between staff and the applicant, see if we can't get that question answered. Pat Miktos?
Pat Mictus, 4755 East Halifax in Mesa. I own my home since 1980. I am definitely opposed to this project for a variety of reasons. The most important thing is the density is over the top. We have a big project that was, I don't know, approved by you people apparently, at Brown Road in Higley. The density is over the top there. Then you have the farmhouses built at Brown and Greenfield. They have plenty of room in between. You've got Trovita going in. You have all these other projects in that area, and now you're going to add 39 houses in 4 acres? That's crazy. The density is over the top. I can see a few houses in that area, but having a small area in and a small area out, you're taxing the police, fire, and emergency in every respect. I'm bringing in the election pamphlets that you folks print. And I'm reading some of the things in here about how you've had to do overrides and so on, privilege taxes, and all of this because of all of the problems with not many understaffed police department, fire department, lack of proper equipment, personnel, training, and how here's the privilege tax. We voted on that. Why? Because of police, fire, and medical services. We have here, and this is the stuff you put out. Here's one from here's the mayor's and David Luna, who never called me back. Here we did an override election. Overrides will address teachers to prevent class size increases, security for schools, compliance with minimum wage, technology, essential classroom supplies, all of these things that we've had to vote on. This project will tax all of these things. Again, all of these, this is all written. These are all privilege tax. We voted on the privilege tax to increase 2%, the budget override 15%, and I've never received a letter from any of these people. I have no notification whatsoever, and I live just a few blocks away. I never received a letter, but I saw a sign posted that there was going to be a zoning hearing here. Now, if you go back and read the propaganda that we get in the general elections and so on, and read about how 40%, we have 40% of the 40% increase in the amount of calls.
Thank you, ma'am.
For police
I'm sorry,
and fire.
your 3 minutes is up. I'm sorry, we have to move on to the next person, but thank
Anyway,
you.
I'm opposed to it. That's it.
Thank you.
It's too dense. It's too greedy.
Thank you. Ron Lucas? Thank you.
My name is Ron Lucas. I live at 4755 East Halifax. Been there since 1980. First of all, the density is utterly off the charts. I also take offense that the builder basically describes our existence in that area as leftovers from the county. The county, so now we're nobody better than that. Also, he brought up about the fact of the price of a house or whatever. Now, if he builds this, they can sell them for $290,000 or whatever. Well, I can guarantee if he takes the lot and cuts it into 5, 6, 7, even 8 houses versus 30 houses, he can get the same money out of each unit. But again, it's a matter of greed. in the revenue. And again, our infrastructure is being stretched to the max now, and this will overextend it further. But again, it's like everything else that goes on in this city over the years. Until something drastic happens, there is no change. God forbid, a kid gets run over or there's a fatal accident as a result of these new people, 40 of them or however many you decide on, causing this area. I guess that's all I got to say. Hope you reconsider to oppose it.
Thank you. Let's see here. Garrett, is it Kyle? Kyle? I can't read it. It's 1236 North 46th.
That would be me.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right. My name is Garrett Patrick Mackenzie Hyde, and I live at 1236 North 46th Street. It is on the southwest corner of the proposed project. We have an acre and a quarter that we own, and we intend to have livestock. So on that grounds alone, I am requesting that you oppose the rezoning itself. Not the project, but the actual rezoning. It should be zoned R43. However, knowing that the staff has approved, or at least wants to move forward with this, I do have a couple specific oppositions. I'm opposed to the density like many others. I think it should match more what you see up and down any one of the streets. And if you go up and down any one of the streets, there's 24 houses. Whether or not that is something that the developer can make ends meet with, I don't know. But I'm proposing that something closer to 24 houses is more appropriate for the neighborhood. I also want to state that I believe that my wall on the north side of my property, on the south side of the proposed project, is entirely on my property line, and that they may not attach to it if they do intend to move forward. And if they do intend to move forward, I would actually propose that they provide a wall on their side of their property to protect my property. And that is about all I had to say, except that they said at some point that there were maybe 12 people at the first meeting. The first meeting was a little chaotic, and I believe that there was more than 12 people at that first meeting. But the reason why we had so many people at the second and third meeting was my wife and I got out and we attached flyers on every door and let people know that this was going on and to show up. And we had a ton of people at that second and third meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Turley?
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Turley. I live at 4651 East Halifax Street. I moved to the area when I was about 13 years old and lived on Geri Street. And so I've grown up in the area. I've played on the lot, went to the bus stop across the street there growing up. And so I'm very familiar with the property. Right now it's a vacant lot. This has no trespassing. It's not used at all. I got involved coming to the meetings because I did receive a flyer at my house. I'm glad I did. Had I not received the flyers like many of us, maybe many of us wouldn't be in favor of the property and the new build. I think it'd be a disservice to the community if multi-family homes were built there, like a duplexes or quadruplexes, apartments. I am in favor of these homes going in. I'm looking forward to 36 new neighbors to be able to associate with, to increase the number of our schools, to associate with the kids in the neighborhood. Sometimes these folks that may be moving to these homes may be deemed as outsiders or infiltrators, but they're just like us. They're good, hardworking people wanting to support their families and their lives. I think it'd be crazy if the Planning and Zoning Commission did not recommend to approve this to the City Council to have this property built. Thank you.
Thank you. Max? Gosh, I cannot read this, I'm sorry. That looks like it, yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm Max Ganley. I live at 3712 East Halifax Circle, Mesa, Arizona. So I was actually raised in the area and still live in the area. And I'm for this development. I went to Barbara Bush Elementary School, and one thing I've noticed in the area is I've loved to see new communities come up. I really feel like it encourages younger people to want to stay in the area as we see new developments. I took the chance and went down and looked at the houses that were built off, I believe, like they mentioned, Brown and the 202, and they look amazing. The structures are pretty cool, and so I'm for this, and I think it's going to do great things for our area. So,
Thank you. Okay, Matt Fleming?
Name's Matt Fleming. I live at 1530 North Balboa, over there in the community that's off of McClellan and Higley, and the KB homes, high-density homes, if you will. That's what it's been called. I have a young family, wife and 3 kids, and reason why I'm for this community, I approve it, and I hope that you would approve it as a board, is because we like to take advantage of the local park, the Princess Park. And family loves that area. And while we're there, it doesn't seem like we see a lot of kids in that area, our age, or our kids' age. And so as a result of that, we'd like to see new homes in the area that would bring new families, young families, that would bring more kids, the appropriate age for our kids to play with. And so as a result of that, I'm for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Dirk Burr?
My name is Dirk Burr. I live at 4660 East Hobart Street, which is north and a little bit east of the proposed project. I too have gone to the Monticello subdivision, kind of skeptically thinking, yeah, I want to see, because most of the opposition that I've heard from my neighbors and stuff are, I just can't imagine how they're going to jam that many houses into that small of a space. I can't imagine. I just can't picture it. Well, Monticello is right there. You don't have to imagine it. It's beautiful. All in favor, as opposed to apartments. I think that the opportunity to live the American dream, own your own home that you can afford, and live in a great neighborhood like ours should not be blocked by concerns that you just can't imagine how it's going to look. So I am in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Wyatt Frost?
I'm Wyatt Frost. I live on 4707 East Geri Street, just up the road from the proposed building, and I am in favor for this project. The reason I am in favor for this project, well, there's a few. Like many others have said, I believe these communities, or this community, is going to be beautiful. I know people who personally live in that community that's built on the freeway and Brown, and they are amazing homes. And if anything, I believe it could increase the property values of our homes just up the street or next to this community.
Everyone, please speak. We've got to respect each other's opinions here. Everyone's got a few minutes to speak.
What else? These homes could be a lot closer together. They could be slammed together. I mean, if you look how much yard they have, I think this is a great proposed building plan. And as far as them being too close together, I mean, if you don't like it, don't go in it. Don't drive in it. I mean, high density homes, how is it going to really affect you? Just don't go in the neighborhood and it won't be high density for you. And as far as the street being dangerous because of more people driving down the road, well, they do plan to increase the infrastructure by adding street lights and sidewalks. In my opinion, that's just going to make the road safer. This is a gated community. These kids aren't going to be running around in their street when they've got a much nicer neighborhood to be playing in that's going to be perhaps safer, as well as a park. If your kids are running a road, obviously that's not safe. Don't have your kids running around in the streets, and they won't get hit by cars. I am in favor for this, and I think it'll be really good for our neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. And let's see, Brent Tibbets.
So I'm not sure what all was said because I came in a little late. Some of us, this is a working neighborhood, and a lot of people cannot come this early in the day because they have other obligations. But I have driven through the Monticello neighborhood, and I have to say that it does look a nice neighborhood. I was surprised. However, I am opposed to this development in our neighborhood, and there are several reasons. One being that it is common when a subdivision goes in of this nature to a neighborhood that does not have sewer, that they will at some point force the other neighborhood to accept sewer. We have had some notices in the past asking if we were in favor of doing that before this subdivision even came up, and I believe it was an overwhelming no from what I understand. But the cost of doing so is so prohibitive to many of the people that live there, it will probably force people out of their homes. From what we got from the letter from the city was that it was going to be about $10,000 per household to bring the sewer in through our streets. That's if we don't hook up to it. And then if we do hook up to it, then the cost of hooking up would be an additional whatever it is, probably $6,000 to $10,000. And then you'd have the sewer fees, which might be another $500 a year on top of that. There are many people in that neighborhood that are there because it's what they can afford, and they have a nicer, bigger lot that they can use. They can raise their kids. I've raised all of my kids there, and our finances through most of the years were so tight that there was nothing left over. Just maintaining the home was difficult for us, as I know it is for some of the others. I know some in this last inspection that came through, because of the timing, they had 3 weeks to do whatever the city inspection noted that they needed to do. And with work or illnesses or being out of town or whatever, they were not able to accomplish all that needed to be done in that length of time. And some of those were fined $500 because they did not get it done in time. And a couple weeks later, when it's finished, the city inspector came back and said, yeah, this looks good, you're fine. I can probably reduce that for you, but I can't take it away because I don't have the authority to do that. These families, they struggle just to have a home. And this is a place where we can have a home. And there needs to be a place for everyone, not just those who can afford the new homes.
I'm sorry, sir, your 3 minutes has come to an end.
Pardon?
I'm sorry that your 3 minutes, everyone had 3 minutes to speak and the clock just ran out on you.
I'm sorry. So am I out of time?
Yes, sir.
Could I just mention, itemize some of the other concerns?
It wouldn't be fair to everybody else was cut off at 3 minutes.
Is there another place I can voice it? A letter or something?
Well, the city council, and we'll let everybody know the date of the city council meeting. This item will go on to the city council.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So I believe that's all of the cards. Did you have a card that you filled out?
I did. May I put in opposed. I said I did not want to speak. May I change my mind and speak?
What is your name?
Raven Wright. I was the top opposer on your list.
Okay, we'll go ahead and give you 3 minutes.
Thank
Just state your name and address for us, though, for the record.
Hi, my name is Raven Wright, and I live at 1236 North 46th Street. And as my husband stated, we're the property in that southwest corner, that green belt. So the reason why I wanted to speak is because I heard both from opposing and also from wanting to have it, that on one side they said, well, actually it's proposed as a gated community. So that means it's going to be an HOA gated community where these new families are going to live. And the people were saying that were for it, that these are going to be new people in our community that we can jive with and hang out with. And yes, we can at the park. However, if they're behind the gated community, that doesn't always mean that people are going to be out in our neighborhood. I've noticed before that gates and walls tend to keep people apart, not bring them together. So my general opposition is not that I don't feel we should bring people in, but is really the size and the scope of it. I do have a concern about having 36 new homes, especially when they're up against our property line. We do intend to have some livestock, and I know that can cause some discomfort for people who are not used to necessarily living the country lifestyle or the semi-country lifestyle. And we did have discussions. They did say that there will be contracts that will be signed by people moving in, but that doesn't account for people then, let's say 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, who may move in afterwards, or if because of the affordability of that housing, we have investors who buy those houses in the future and then have renters come in to that HOA, which actually could turn the style, I guess, of our entire neighborhood. So that is kind of a concern. I understand that stretches the future, but I mostly want to address the idea of how are we a community together if we're separated by walls. So I think those two arguments are kind of, they don't make sense. To say that I'm for it, walls are great, they'll be part of the community, but not if they're hanging out behind their walls. And we actually won't have access to them as residents because it's going to be gated in and out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I am going to close the public comment section, so please refrain from calling out or saying anything from the audience. We wanted to give everyone a chance to speak, but we have to have a process to follow. So at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come back up and address some of those concerns that we heard.
Thank you. There seems to be a misperception or misunderstanding regarding traffic, and I keep hearing this word high density, but this isn't a high density product. This is actually what's considered medium and low medium density. But even if it's the case, it still has to correlate to a problem. If you're saying it's bad, what's the problem it correlates to? And I don't see it. The values are consistent with the area. The traffic study shows it's not going to be a traffic impact. And so the schools are under capacity. We solve drainage concerns. So there is no correlation other than, I think, a general sentiment that maybe it's hard to embrace new change. When I think about the comment about 76 new cars, I think someone did the math and figured maybe 2 or 3 homes per car, but it doesn't mean all homes are all driving at the exact same time in that same very moment. And that's why we have a professional engineer who does that, so we don't have to guess or conjecture. I appreciate some of the comments, particularly by Mr. Turley, who's lived in this neighborhood as a kid and still lives in this neighborhood as an adult and understands that over time, new blood, new friendships, new associations help keep a neighborhood vital. They help keep Mesa strong and healthy. And that's one way to help revitalize what our area is built in the 1970s. I think Mr. Tibbets mentioned some code violations. I mean, inevitably, that's what happens sometimes of a neighborhood of this age. And so when you bring in new development, I think a rising tide floats all boats. And I do believe that will happen here. I appreciate some of the sentiment there, but at the end of the day, you have a professional reviewing staff. This gets reviewed by both police, fire, grading and drainage, your traffic departments, and your planning staff, who've all reviewed these plans, found them to be acceptable, and not to be the detriment that I think has been conjectured. It's true, this is an HOA. The community around is not an HOA, but whether or not we are HOA inside of our perimeter fences doesn't require them to join their HOA or force them into an HOA situation either. You've heard that we've addressed the sewer issue, even though that seems to be still a belief that people have. But when I think about what infill development means, I think about the infrastructure that comes along with that. Dragging a sewer line down the road, putting in the streets, the curb, the gutter, the lighting, all the things that should have been done by a prior development in the 1970s, this little 4-acre has to absorb. And so for it to absorb that, you have to have sufficient density to make that practical and doable. I do believe, though, this makes good sense. It's appropriate for that area. And I appreciate those who spoke in support. And I think that shows you that some people can see the benefit of this, even though others might be reticent to accept some new changes. Thank you for your time today.
Of our staff. All right. Anyone, no? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion? Are we at that stage?
Approval. I appreciate the fact that this is a high-quality infill project. It's not often that we see something that has the elevations and the design that really adds character and keeps some character in an infill project, and I appreciate the fact that that was done here. The fact that it offers a variety of housing type. We have lots of young professionals, the creative class that simply can't afford large lots and may not want large lots. And I think a comprehensive community offers a variety of housing types and living styles to accommodate the different needs of the folks living in that community. So I appreciate that it offers a different type of housing and that middle that we're missing. The data clearly demonstrates the traffic pattern, the school, the property value, so I appreciate that that was worked into the presentation. And I think it's actually improving some of the infrastructure in that area. Certainly complies with the general plan, so I motion for approval.
Thank you.
You need to read the case number.
Yes. Together or separately?
We can.
Like we discussed.
You can do them together, Madam Chair, members of the board, and also Board Member Diana, is your recommendation with the conditions of approval as well?
That they can be done together?
Yes.
Okay. So I would recommend approval of 4A ZON 19-00651 District 5 within the 1300 blocks of North 46th Street West Side, located north of Brown Road and east of Greenfield Road, rezoned from RS 43 to RSL 2.5 PAD. This request will allow for the development of a single residence subdivision. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. My motion is approval with conditions, along with Parkside Villas District 5 within the 1300 blocks of North 46th Street West Side, located north of Brown Road and east of Greenfield Road. Preliminary plat. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. I motion approval with conditions.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh.
A double second. Any further discussion? Otherwise, I'd ask you to vote, please. Okay, so the motion passes unanimously with Board Member Boyle absent. Mr. Apia, when is the City Council meeting so the neighbors can attend?
Chair, members of the board, we do not have a specific date right now. What we can do is there are key residents who are present. We can absolutely communicate with them and basically convey that information to the neighborhood whenever the case is scheduled for City Council.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
It was a tie, okay. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, everyone please vote. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.